Padre Pio awoke in the still of the night, drenched in a cold sweat. He had just fought a terrible battle, not against men, not against animals, but against something far worse. And it all started with him simply shifting in his sleep. He had turned to his left side, and in that moment, something approached him from the darkness, something that had been waiting for exactly that. This happened in San Giovanni Rotondo. Back in 1947, Padre Pio told the story to a small group of friars the next morning. His voice was hoarse, his hands trembled slightly, and his eyes held the weight of someone who had seen things that most of us will never see. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal what Padre Pio taught about the position in which we sleep. I'm going to show you why sleeping on your left side can be particularly dangerous at night. And I'm going to explain what happens in the spiritual realm while you slumber. But I must warn you, what you're about to hear may completely change how you prepare for sleep. Ignorance may feel comfortable, but truth protects. Have you ever stopped to think about what position you sleep in? Most people never even consider it. They think it's just personal preference, physical comfort, habit. But Padre Pio taught that our choices, even the seemingly insignificant ones, have spiritual dimensions that we don't realize, and the position we sleep in is one of them. On that night in 1947, Padre Pio had lain down as usual, on his right side, as he always did. It was a habit he had since he was young, not by chance, by instruction. An old priest had taught him when he was still a seminarian that the right side was safer for sleeping. At the time, the young Frank didn't fully understand, but he obeyed, and he continued to obey for decades. But on this particular night, something made him turn, perhaps physical discomfort, perhaps an involuntary movement during sleep. He couldn't explain it. He just woke up suddenly, aware that he was on his left side, and aware that he was not alone in the room. The presence was palpable, dense, hostile. Padre Pio described it as a darkness, darker than the darkness itself, a shadow that had weight, an absence that occupied space. And this presence was approaching him. It was testing him. It was searching for an opening. The saint reacted immediately. He made the sign of the cross. He invoked the name of Jesus, and he turned back to his right side. The battle that followed lasted for hours. Padre Pio prayed without stopping. He felt physical attacks. He heard voices that tried to disturb him, but he stood firm. And when the sun finally rose, the presence withdrew. The next morning, the friars noticed marks on Padre Pio's body, scratches that weren't there the night before, unexplained bruises, and an exhaustion that went beyond the physical. He had fought, and he had won, but the price was high. These physical marks were nothing new to those who knew Padre Pio well. The older friars had seen this dozens of times over the years. They knew that the saints' nights were rarely peaceful. They knew that while they slept in peace, Padre Pio was often in combat, a combat that left visible marks on the body, but even deeper ones on the soul. One of the friars, Brother Timothy, kept an unofficial record of these occurrences. He noted the dates, the marks observed, and anything that Padre Pio shared about what had happened. Over 20 years, he had documented more than 300 nights of battle, 300 nights in which the saint had awakened wounded, exhausted, but victorious. Padre Pio once explained to Brother Timothy why these battles happened so frequently. "The enemy knows that my prayers free souls," he said. "Each soul I snatch from his clutches is a defeat for hell. So, he tries to stop me. He tries to wear me down. He tries to make me give up. But as long as I have strength, I will continue fighting." Brother Timothy asked if there was no way to avoid these attacks. Padre Pio smiled sadly. "As long as I am on this earth," he said, "the battle will continue. Complete peace will only come in heaven. Here, we are soldiers, and soldiers don't flee the battlefield." Padre Pio explained to the friars what had happened, not to scare them, but to instruct them. He said that during sleep, we are especially vulnerable. Our consciousness is diminished, our defenses are lowered, and forces that dare not approach during the day find opportunity in the night. The position in which we sleep, he continued, is not irrelevant. In the tradition of the Church, the right side has always been associated with blessing, with protection, with the presence of God. Jesus sits at the right hand of the Father. The righteous will be placed on the right at the final judgment. The right side symbolizes divine favor. The left side, on the other hand, has a different association in the spiritual tradition. Not that it is evil in itself, but symbolically, it represents what is outside direct protection, what is more exposed, what is more vulnerable. When we sleep on our left side, our heart is more exposed, more accessible, and in spiritual terms, that can have consequences. Padre Pio wasn't just talking about symbolism, he was talking about experience. Decades in the confessional had shown him patterns. People who had frequent nightmares almost always slept on their left side. People who felt oppressed during the night, exhausted upon waking, haunted by disturbing thoughts, often had this habit in common. A man sought out Padre Pio in 1952 with a problem that had tormented him for years. Every night he had terrible nightmares. He would wake up sweating, trembling, sometimes screaming. The doctors could find nothing wrong. The medicines didn't help. He was on the verge of despair. Padre Pio asked something that no doctor had asked. "Which side do you sleep on?" The man was surprised by the question. He replied that he slept on his left side. He had always slept that way. Since childhood, the saint nodded, as if the answer confirmed something he already suspected. He then explained to the man what was happening. "During sleep," said Padre Pio, "the soul remains in the body, but it is less vigilant. It is like a guard who dozes at his post. The defenses are diminished, and certain positions leave us more exposed than others. When you sleep on your left side," he continued, "your heart is facing upwards, more exposed. In physical terms, this may cause discomfort for some people, but in spiritual terms, it's like leaving a door ajar, not fully open, but enough for something to try to enter." The man listened in silence, skeptical at first. He was a practical man. He didn't believe much in these spiritual things, but he was desperate, and Padre Pio was his last hope. The saint gave him specific instructions. In the dead of night, a cold sweat drenches Padre Pio. He's just weathered a fierce battle, not with men, not with beasts, but with something far more sinister. It all began with a simple shift in his sleep, a turn to his left side, and in that instant, something stalked him from the shadows, something that had been lying in wait for just such a moment. First, a man should change his sleeping position, lie on his right side. If he wakes up on his left during the night, he should consciously turn over, not out of superstition, but out of spiritual precaution. Second, he should say a specific prayer before going to sleep. Ask Saint Michael the Archangel for protection. Invoke the presence of the guardian angels. Consecrate his sleep to God. Transform the act of lying down into an act of trust and surrender. Third, he should keep holy water in the room and make the sign of the cross before closing his eyes. Small gestures that create a spiritual barrier, that establish sacred territory, that declare who you are and to whom you belong. The man followed the instructions without much faith, more out of desperation than conviction. But on the first night that he slept on his right side, after saying the prayers that Padre Pio had taught him, something changed. For the first time in years, he didn't have nightmares. He slept through the night, and woke up refreshed. He thought it was a coincidence. He tested it again the following night. Same result. And the next, and the next. Weeks went by without a single nightmare. Years of torment had ended with a simple change of position and a few prayers. The man returned to Padre Pio months later, transfigured. Not only had his sleep improved, his whole life had changed. He had started taking his spiritual life more seriously, praying regularly, attending the sacraments. The nightly battle he had been losing for years had been the catalyst for a profound conversion. Padre Pio smiled when he saw him. The demons sometimes do a service unintentionally, the saint said. By attacking him, they had led him to seek God. What they intended for his destruction, God used for his salvation. This wasn't the only case of this kind. A young nurse from Naples came to San Giovanni Rotondo in 1955 with a similar story. She worked the night shift at a hospital. When she got home in the morning, she would sleep during the day, and she had horrible nightmares every day. She thought it was because of her job, seeing suffering, death, pain every day. She thought her mind was processing it all during sleep. The doctors agreed. They suggested anti-anxiety medication, a change of shift, even psychotherapy. Nothing worked. A co-worker who knew Padre Pio suggested she visit him. The nurse was skeptical. She didn't really believe in living saints. But she was desperate enough to try anything. Padre Pio listened to her story attentively. Then he asked unexpected questions, not about her job, not about what she saw in the hospital, but about how she slept. Which side? With what kind of thoughts? What did she do before going to bed? The nurse answered honestly. She slept on her left side because it was the only way to not hear the street noise. She went to bed right after an exhausting shift, without praying, without preparing spiritually. And she often fell asleep with images of the hospital still fresh in her mind. Padre Pio shook his head. "You're doing everything wrong," he said. "It's not the job that's causing your nightmares. It's how you prepare for sleep. You're going into battle completely unarmed, and then you're surprised when you get wounded." He gave her detailed instructions. Even tired, she should set aside 15 minutes for prayer before bed. She should do a mental cleanse, consciously surrender the images of the day to God. And yes, she should change her sleeping position from the left side to the right, even if it meant hearing more street noise. The physical noise was less disturbing than the spiritual attacks. The nurse implemented the changes with skepticism, but the results were immediate. Within a week, the nightmares had decreased dramatically. Within a month, they had practically ceased. She continued working the night shift for another 10 years, but she never had those terrible nightmares again. But hold on to this, because I'm about to reveal this now, because Padre Pio explained much more about what happens during sleep. And some of these revelations are disturbing. The saint taught that the night is a spiritual battlefield, not just metaphorically, literally. While our bodies rest, there is an invisible war happening all around us. Angels and demons vie for influence. Thoughts are implanted, dreams are manipulated, and we, sleeping, are in the middle of this conflict without even realizing it. That's why, Padre Pio said, preparing for sleep is as important as preparing for battle. A soldier doesn't go to war without armor. A Christian shouldn't go into the night without spiritual protection. He described the hours between 3 and 4 in the morning as particularly intense. This period, which tradition calls the witching hour, is when demonic activity reaches its peak. That's when nightmares are most vivid, when temptations are strongest, when human resistance is at its lowest point. Padre Pio often woke up during this hour, not to sleep, to pray. He knew that while most people were vulnerable and unconscious, someone needed to be vigilant. Someone needed to intercede. Someone needed to fight. He told of one night when he was awakened by screams, Not physical screams, spiritual screams, souls in torment, people being attacked in their dreams, and Padre Pio could hear them as if they were in the next room. That night, he prayed for hours, for people he didn't know, for battles he couldn't see. By morning he was exhausted, but he knew he had made a difference. He knew that some souls had been protected because someone had stood up to fight for them. A woman sought out Padre Pio a few days after that specific night. She lived in a distant city, had never met the saint before, but she had had a strange experience a few days earlier. She recounted that she was having a terrible nightmare. She felt trapped, suffocated, surrounded by darkness. And then, suddenly she saw a light. And in that light, a friar with a beard. He called her by name, told her not to be afraid, and the darkness receded. When she described the friar, it was clearly Padre Pio, but she had never seen him before, never heard of him. The description came from the dream, and she had traveled miles to find the man who had saved her from the nightmare. Padre Pio confirmed, "Yes, I was there. I saw you being attacked. I interceded for you. But now that you're here, you need to learn to protect yourself. I can't be everywhere every night. You need to arm yourself for battle." He then taught her the same practices that he had taught the man with nightmares: the sleeping position, the prayers of protection, the holy water, the sacramentals. And he added something else: regular confession. Padre Pio explained that unconfessed sins are like open doors. They give access to the enemy. They create vulnerabilities that can be exploited during sleep. A soul in a state of grace is much harder to attack than a soul burdened with unrepented sins. A woman once asked him why the demons had attacked her specifically. Padre Pio responded that sometimes there's no specific reason. They attack whoever is vulnerable, whoever is unprotected, whoever offers opportunity. But sometimes there are reasons: spiritual envy, a grace you're about to receive, a calling you're about to answer. The attacks might be a sign that you are a threat to the kingdom of darkness. The woman left that encounter transformed. She implemented everything Padre Pio taught her. She changed her sleeping position, started praying before bed, began going to confession regularly, and the nightmares never returned. Padre Pio also spoke about the importance of the environment where we sleep. He recommended that the bedroom be blessed, that it should have sacred images, that it should be a consecrated space, not just a place to rest the body. He told a story about a family who sought him out because everyone in the house was having nightmares. Parents, children, even the animals seemed disturbed during the night. They had recently moved into a new house, and since then, everyone's sleep had been affected. Padre Pio asked questions about the house. He discovered that the former resident had practiced occultism there, had performed rituals, had opened doors that should not be opened, and even after they left, those doors remained open. The saint instructed the family on what to do. The house needed to be blessed by a priest, preferably with a mass celebrated on site. The former residents' objects that were still there needed to be removed and destroyed, and the family needed to consecrate the house to God, declaring that that space now belonged to him. The family followed the instructions. A local priest celebrated Mass in the house. Holy water was sprinkled in every room, and the family offered a prayer of consecration, dedicating the home to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The change was immediate. On the first night after the blessing, everyone slept in peace. The nightmares ceased. The atmosphere of the house changed. What was heavy became light. What was disturbing became serene. Padre Pio told another case that illustrates the importance of the spiritual environment. A young couple had bought used furniture for the bedroom. An old bed, a wardrobe, a dresser, all high quality, all cheap. They seemed to have gotten a great deal, but since they put the furniture in the bedroom, They both started having trouble sleeping, not just nightmares, insomnia, a sensation of presence. They would wake up in the middle of the night, afraid, without knowing what of. Their marriage began to suffer. They were always tired, irritated, fighting over anything. They sought out Padre Pio after 8 months of living like this. The saint asked when the problems had started. They did the math and realized that it had all started after the furniture arrived. Padre Pio explained that objects can carry spiritual influences from their previous owners. If the previous owners practiced grave sins on that furniture, if they performed rituals, if they opened spiritual doors, those influences can remain. They can affect, BBHU uses the objects later. And what can we do? The wife asked. Do we need to get rid of everything? Padre Pio gave a practical answer. First, try to bless the furniture, sprinkle holy water, offer prayers of deliverance over them. Sometimes that's enough, but if the problems persist, then yes, it's better to get rid of them. No furniture is worth your spiritual peace. The couple returned home and did what Padre Pio suggested. They called a priest to bless the bedroom and all the furniture for 2 weeks. It seemed to work. But then the problems returned, worse than before. They made the difficult decision. They sold the furniture, bought new furniture, and from the first night with the new furniture, they slept in peace. The marriage improved. Joy returned. All because they had finally removed objects that carried a spiritual history that wasn't theirs. Padre Pio used this case to teach something important. Not everything that is cheap is a blessing. Sometimes we pay a very high price for apparent savings, especially when it comes to objects that are going to be in our most intimate space, the bedroom where we sleep, the place where we are most vulnerable. Now pay attention, because Padre Pio gave very specific guidance on how to prepare for sleep. These instructions came from decades of experience in the confessional and from his own nightly battles. First, Padre Pio taught to do an examination of conscience before sleeping, review the day, recognize the sins committed, ask for forgiveness. Don't go to bed with a weight on your conscience. Don't carry unresolved conflicts with God or with others into your sleep. Second, he recommended making the sign of the cross with holy water, not just on the forehead, on the chest, on the lips, and sprinkle some water on the pillow and sheets. This sanctifies the space where you are going to spend the next vulnerable hours. Third, he suggested praying a specific prayer of protection. The prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel was his favorite. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. This prayer, prayed with faith before sleeping, creates real protection against nightly attacks. Fourth, he taught to lie down on your right side, with your hands together over your chest, as if in prayer. This position, he said, is the position of the Christian who rests in God, who entrusts their night to the care of the Father, who sleeps knowing that they are protected. Fifth, he recommended having sacred objects nearby, a crucifix on the wall above the bed, an image of Our Lady, a rosary under the pillow. These are not amulets or superstitions. They are reminders of God's presence, declarations of belonging, markers of spiritual territory. A young seminarian asked Padre Pio if all this wasn't an exaggeration, if it wasn't giving the devil too much attention. The saint responded with an analogy that the young man would never forget. Do you lock your front door before sleeping? The seminarian said yes. Why? Because there are thieves. Have you ever been robbed? No. Then why do you lock it? To prevent it. Exactly. You don't need to have been attacked to take precautions. Prudence isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. And the same logic applies to the spiritual world. Padre Pio also warned about certain practices that increase vulnerability during sleep. He specifically mentioned going to bed angry. Scripture says not to let the sun go down on your wrath. Padre Pio explained that unresolved anger is like an invitation, an open door, a breach in the armor. He also talked about what we consume before we sleep. Not just food, but content, what you watch, what you read, what you listen to. If your last activity before sleeping is violence, terror, impurity, you are feeding your mind with exactly the kind of thing the demons can use against you during sleep. One man told Padre Pio that he had nightmares filled with scenes from horror movies he'd watched. The saint wasn't surprised. You opened the door, he said. You invited those images into your mind. And now they come back when you are most vulnerable. The solution isn't just to stop watching, it's to purify the mind through prayer and the sacraments. Padre Pio spoke about this with a seriousness, a gravity that some found excessive, but he saw what others didn't see. He saw the consequences. He saw the tormented souls. He saw the damage that a careless spiritual life caused, especially during the sleeping hours. The super thanks down below. It's a way for you to support this work, this mission of bringing teachings that the modern world ignores. These truths about the spiritual life aren't exactly trending. Most people prefer to believe that sleep is just physical rest, that dreams are just brain processing, that there's nothing spiritual happening while we slumber. But Padre Pio knew better. And now, you know too. But hold on, I'm not finished yet, because Padre Pio also taught about dreams and how to interpret them. He explained that there are 3 types of dreams. First, there are natural dreams, processing the day. Memories mixed together, the mind organizing information. These have no special spiritual meaning. They're just brain function. The second type, demonic dreams, nightmares implanted, temptations presented in dream form, disturbing images projected into the mind during sleep. These are attacks, and they should be treated as such. The third type, dreams from God, divine messages, guidance, warnings, consolations. God can speak through dreams, like he did with Joseph in the Old Testament and with Saint Joseph in the New, but these are rare, and they must be discerned with care. Padre Pio warned against giving excessive importance to dreams. Most dreams are the first type, natural, without special meaning, but he also warned against ignoring them completely. Sometimes God speaks, and sometimes the enemy attacks. Knowing how to discern is important. One criterion he gave: observe the fruits. A dream from God leaves peace, clarity, consolation. A demonic dream leaves disturbance, confusion, fear. If you wake up from a dream anxious and disturbed, it probably wasn't from God. If you wake up with a feeling of peace and clarity, it might have been a message. Another criterion: conformity with the faith. God will never say in a dream something that contradicts his revelation. If a dream suggests that you do something against the commandments, against the doctrine of the church, against morality, it's not from God. It doesn't matter how real it seems. It doesn't matter how convincing it is. Padre Pio told about a woman who came to him, claiming to have received a message from Our Lady in a dream. The message said that she should leave her husband and follow a certain man who would be her true spouse. She was convinced it was divine revelation. The saint didn't even need much discernment. That directly contradicts the teaching of the Church on marriage, he said. Our Lady would never say something like that. That dream wasn't from God. It was from the enemy, trying to destroy your marriage through a false revelation. The woman was confused. The dream had seemed so real, so true. She had felt so much peace during the dream. Padre Pio explained that demons can simulate peace. They can create pleasant sensations. They can disguise themselves as angels of light. That's why the criterion isn't just the feeling, It's conformity with revealed truth. He sent the woman back home, to her husband, to her marriage, and he warned that this type of deception happened more often than people imagined. False revelations in dreams had destroyed families, vocations, entire lives. A lack of discernment was dangerous. Padre Pio also spoke about dreams with deceased people. Many people sought out the saint because they had dreamed of relatives who had died. They wanted to know what it meant. They wanted to know if the soul was trying to communicate something. The saint was cautious about this subject. He explained that sometimes God allows souls from purgatory to appear in dreams, to ask for prayers. This is Catholic doctrine. Souls can request help from the living, and dreams are one way this can happen. But Padre Pio warned, not every dream with the deceased is a visit from the soul. It could simply be memory, longing, the subconscious processing the loss, and it could also be demonic deception. Demons can disguise themselves as people we loved. They can use our pain and longing against us. How to discern? Padre Pio gave some criteria. If the dream asks for prayers, masses, sacrifices for the soul, it's probably genuine. If it asks for something strange, contrary to the faith, or causes prolonged disturbance, it probably isn't. He told about a man who dreamed repeatedly of his deceased mother. In the dream, she always asked for the same thing, that he have masses celebrated for her. The man had ignored the dreams for months, thinking it was just longing. But the dreams continued, always the same message. The man began to have masses celebrated for his mother, and after a few weeks, the dreams stopped, but they stopped in a different way. The last time he dreamed of her, his mother was at peace, smiling. She only said, "Thank you," and he felt that she had departed for a better place. Padre Pio wept when he heard this account. The souls in purgatory depend on us, he said, and sometimes the only way to reach us is through dreams. Don't ignore those requests. Every mass, every prayer, every sacrifice makes a difference. Another type of dream that Padre Pio mentioned, prophetic dreams, not frequent, not for all people, but real. God sometimes reveals the future through dreams, not to satisfy curiosity, to prepare, to warn, to protect. He told about a mother who dreamed that her son was going to die in a car accident on a specific date. She woke up terrified. She came to Padre Pio, begging for help. "What do I do?" she asked. "Do I lock my son in the house? Do I forbid him from leaving?" Padre Pio listened attentively. Then he asked, "In the dream, was your son in a state of grace?" She didn't know how to answer. Padre Pio explained that the warning wasn't necessarily about physical death. It was about the state of the soul. When your son dies, and we all will one day, he needs to be prepared. That's the real warning. Get him to confession. Make sure he's at peace with God. The rest is in the hands of providence. The mother took the advice to heart. She took her son to confession. He resisted at first, but eventually relented. On the date of the dream, she spent the entire day praying. Her son drove off to work, as he did every day, and he came back safe and sound, no accident, not even a fender bender. She went back to Padre Pio, confused. Was the dream a false alarm then? The saint smiled gently. Or perhaps her prayers changed what was to come. Or maybe the dream was just a call to get his spiritual house in order. Either way, her son's confessed. He's in a state of grace. He's ready. That's what truly matters. Now, let me give you the final guidelines that Padre Pio taught. To have nights of peace and protection. First, establish a nightly spiritual routine. Don't go to bed without praying, even if it's brief, even if you're exhausted. Those few minutes of connection with God before sleep make a huge difference, a world of difference. Second, forgive before you lie down. If you have conflict with someone, resolve it, or at least forgive them in your heart. Don't carry anger into sleep. It's fuel for nightmares, a breeding ground for unease. Third, avoid disturbing content before bed. No violent news, no horror movies, no heated arguments. Calm your mind before surrendering it to sleep. Create a sanctuary of peace. Fourth, sleep on your right side when possible. If you wake up on your left side, consciously turn over, not out of superstition, but out of spiritual prudence, a small act of faith. Fifth, treat your bedroom as a sacred space. Holy images, holy water, a crucifix. These aren't just decoration, they're protection. They're a reminder of God's presence, a shield against the darkness. Sixth, if you have frequent nightmares, examine your life. Are there unconfessed sins? Are there doors opened through occult practices, even if they seem innocent? Are there objects in your house that shouldn't be there? Sometimes, nightmares are symptoms of deeper spiritual issues, a call to cleanse your soul. Seventh, do not be afraid. This is perhaps the most important advice. Fear is exactly what the enemy wants to produce. Healthy respect, yes. Prudent caution, yes. But not paralyzing fear. You belong to Christ. Nothing can snatch you from his hand, not even during sleep. Rest in that assurance. Comment down below if this video touched you. Write right side if you're going to start paying attention to the position you sleep in. Write protection if you're going to implement the practices Padre Pio taught, or write nightmares if you suffer from them and need prayer. Let us know. We're here for you. Padre Pio intercedes for you at this moment. He knows the nighttime battles. He fought many of them, and he's praying that your nights will be of peace, of rest, of restoration. Nights where you rest in the arms of the Father, where angels watch over your sleep, where no evil can touch you. Imagine that peace. Claim it now. The protection is available. The practices have been taught. The path has been shown. The decision to implement is yours, and it starts tonight. Don't wait. Begin your journey to peaceful sleep now.